I'm Michael Reese.
And I'm Woods Davis.
And this is the Digital President Podcast.
We've cracked the code for generating customers online for every business model.
In fact, we wrote the book on it.
We've built multiple multi-million-dollar businesses in as little as 90 days. And the one truth that we discovered is
the best business model is doing what you love and living your life by strategy.
You truly can follow your passion and create the life of your dreams,
as long as you have the right strategy.
If you're a real estate agent and you'd like to learn how you can partner with us to help you implement our strategies and systems in your business so you can make a lot more money and have a lot more time freedom, all without ever paying us a penny or giving up a percentage of your commission, go to partnershipdetails.com and schedule a call with us today. While it's fresh in your mind, go to partnershipdetails.com. Now on to the podcast.
So yeah, man, I'm constantly reminded, especially right now, man. As I've been working on the audiobook version of Digital President, man, I've had like some amazing things that have just happened in the last couple days. One of them, and I'm going to share them with you since we haven't gotten to chat in a while, but one of them was from Al. Al called me about the Honey Badger Nation brand. I don't know if you know, but they trademarked all of that and been selling a bunch of merch. And I asked him, he was saying everything, Woods, that was in the book about the building community and being shirt worthy. And I asked him, I said, have you, because my ego was like wanting to say, like, I know what you're saying, right? We wrote a book about it, but I fought it. I fought it and I fought it and I fought it. And then I just asked him the question, did you finish Digital President? And he was like, man, to be honest with you, I got about halfway through it. And I said, bro, you have to finish the book. Everything you're saying is in the book. And I went backwards to 2016 and I said, dude, we wrote this book before we had a, 12,000 person community that was hyper engaged. And so, man, I just wanted to unpack some of that stuff. And before that, I wanted to tell you, because I know we've had this conversation before, and I haven't been able to tell you this, and I didn't send you the video, but I was sitting in my driveway, and there's this big attorney. His wife's an attorney, and I've been to they do get-togethers. He's super successful, and he had just gotten back from Spain, and he's going to Car Week out in Pebble Beach in California. So he invited me to Car Week with his wife and a couple other neighbors. Dude, I've personally met this guy 2 times for less than 3 minutes. And then one time I probably spent 10 minutes at his house. So he's literally a Formula One race car driver. When you walk in his house, he has this steering wheel. And first of all, there's a bunch of intertwinings of community here. And I know I'm kind of throwing up on you because I haven't shared this story. And this is what I would tell you, like, if you landed at my house, because it's a cool story. And I got a video, so we'll insert the video. But he literally pulls up to my house in this Ferrari, and he's one of I forget how many races he's won, like 23 out of 35. He's well known. And the Ferrari that he's in, this isn't his Formula One. This is a different Ferrari. And so I'm sitting in the driveway about to get candy for my kids. They get to pick out one snack for the plane ride home. And he pulls in. I'm backed in, about to pull out. And he says, hey, you should come down. We have some guests that just came to town. We just got back from Spain, blah, blah, blah. He said, and I also owe you a ride. And I was like, you owe me a ride? Okay. And he's like, and so I get in his car and he tells me this is the fastest recorded on record Ferrari, this Ferrari. And you're in this car with one of the best drivers in the world. But for this car, this classic car, I would say I'm the best. He goes through all of the races, blah, blah, blah. This dude pulls out he said, we got to get some runway. So he pulls out of the neighborhood. He goes, and you'll see it in the video, but he floors it. Bro, first of all, I told Jay, I was like, I'm not going to post the video because it seems irresponsible. Then he hits the roundabout sideways at about 60 miles an hour and goes around it 4 times, right? I've never been more scared in my life.
First of all, that's dangerous. Just thinking about driving a Ferrari on those Puerto Rican roads.
Well, I asked him about that, and he's super smart guy. He answered the questions, but the takeaway here is that, man, the number one thing I love about Puerto Rico is community. And so, that would never happen in any other neighborhood. Very rarely, this morning I woke up to a text from Richard. I mean, think about how many text messages, phone calls, and neighbors do you have stop by your house, right? I literally had neighbors here yesterday. I had a phone call and a text message from neighbors this morning. It's just unbelievable to experience community. And I want to break that down. And I have some super interesting conversational stuff. So I feel like in this episode, what you're going to walk away with is the importance of when you're building a business, you should build community. I think there's going to be a little bit of entertainment, a lot of great takeaways and recommendations for, I think it's good. I think after you listen to this episode, you're going to be consuming some content, because what I'm going to share will absolutely blow your mind. And Woods, I know we've done the deep work here. And so, in the book title, if you don't know, it says, why some funnels attract, clients, build an audience. And if you look at the last subtitle of Digital President and build communities and others don't, and in the book, the last chapter is the community funnel. So I want to talk kind of about the principles around community and share maybe some of your takeaways, some of your experiences, really get to the heart of why it's important to be at least thinking about that in the beginning. And then I would love to share some really good things to go out where you can actually witness. I mean, I'm talking about a master class in community. And I believe at the core, if you're an influencer, it's because you built a community. So if you have any desire to build influence on social media, I'm going to literally show you what I would call is the master class, and where you can go understand the principles that we talk about today and then see the application.
Awesome, man. Well, I definitely believe in community as a principle. One of the things that's really, I think, interesting to me, and some of the work that I've been doing recently, has a lot to do with branding. And in any business, you can kind of get into this whole tug of war with building a brand. What kind of brand are you building? Are you building a personal brand? Are you building, is there a brand related to your product? Is there a brand related to your community? And so one of the things that we have talked about a lot and really trying to decode even the principles of branding and like what makes a really magnetic brand, something that people want to be a part of, I think really comes from that idea of building a community. And to me, when I think about it, it is creating something that other people want to be a part of because there's a shared philosophy, there's a shared belief system. And when you can make that value, when you can make that visible for other people, you can add value to people.
Can we unpack, because this is interesting, and I'm going to be very conversational because I've literally been having this conversation this weekend, and I think people get more value out of me and you talking back to each other, sometimes teaching so we can point out the principles. But I'd like to go back to what you mean by brand. Brand is a complex thing, and I'm not saying the definition of brand. I'm saying in the context of you used it because, I said what I think I said to Al was the opposite, right? So I told Al, I know there is brand, but I said, Al, he told me, Al calls me on his big ass boat sitting at a dock with all of these roller coasters. And he tells me about the macaroni and brisket grilled macaroni and cheese he had. And that a guy walked up to him and said, "Are you the realtor?" And he had the honey badger hat on. Well, remember, his boat is called the Honey Badger boat. And he's calling me about why he thinks Honey Badger can be bigger than just what it currently stands for. And so I told Al, Al was using it interchangeably. And I told him, Al, you're a brand ambassador for Honey Badger. But the reason the guy noticed you, and don't get it twisted, wasn't because of the cool little trademarked logo. He noticed you because you've been putting content out consistently.
Mm-hmm.
And because if you, you could take away your personal producing of content, the guy doesn't notice you. You could have been wearing a Harley Davidson hat, which is a brand, which is a community, one of the largest communities. We break it down in the chapter. And I think brand architecture what I don't want people to get confused is, and going back to the influencer is personal brand and then community. I think you have to understand community at the principle. And I said to him, and he said this was a huge takeaway. That's when I texted you, do you have a link to the ebook? Because he said, dude, I'm on the boat. I don't have the ebook. I need to read it now. And I said, can you tell me what Honey Badger stands for? Because for me personally, I have to know what that stands for in order for me to be a part of that community. Mm-hmm. And until you and Jay and me and all of us as ambassadors all agree on what it represents, because a honey badger, I think, originally just represented what a YouTube video said, where it was really more of someone who doesn't give an F, right?
Right.
And I think that, I think in the context of that, Woods, what we'll talk about and I believe this, and I hate it. I hate it. But it's unfortunate that the community, when the brand represents something negative, it seems to have quicker traction.
Oh, 100%. The whole point of building a community is being able to, put out something that's going to attract people that are like you because they share this belief system. And the most powerful attraction comes when you can clearly repel people that believe something opposite. But I think that you're right. The reason why negativity stands out is because the same reason that people say if it bleeds, it leads. The same reason why it's easier to sell painkillers than candy. It's because our brains are wired to go to that. And so it's easier to stand out with a negative spin.
Let me give you an example, and I encourage you to watch this. I think it'll blow your mind. And I'm embarrassed to say that I did it, but I watched it. So my family left, and I watched Woodstock 1999. So Woodstock, have you seen Woodstock 1999?
No,
Biggest festival ever in history. It was done in Rome, New York. There's a 3-part series. I watched them back to back. I went and got in my bed after. I was exhausted. I got in my bed. I was looking for something to watch. It was right at the top. It was trending on Netflix. I guarantee you'll be blown away. When Woodstock 99 ended, it looked like Baghdad under attack. Everything was burnt to the ground. And it was the opposite of Woodstock 1969. And so you look at the person who, there was a young guy who later was old, recently passed away, who was they brought in the monks. What are they called? The
Tibetan monks?
Like they brought in the Tibetan monks at the first Woodstock, so they brought them into the second one. But here's what happened. First of all, just to be a spoiler, and you'll know if you watch the trailer, it was a disaster. It was bigger. It was so massive. It took up a military base, a runway. I think it cost like $35 million to produce, a 3-day event. People from all over the world. It's unbelievable to see this story. It became a city, right? They had over 400,000 people in attendance. Nothing like that has ever been attempted since.
Golly.
For 3 days, just the shower and the waste management, all of that is just super complex. And so they tried to do it in 1994, but they weren't able to do it. They did it, but people were able to go through the fence and break in. So more than half of the people didn't pay, and so it wasn't profitable. And so on this one, they went with the military base that had an actual wall around it, very secure location. And so but the problem was for profitability. The difference between Woodstock 1969 and 1999 was one was about peace and love. Well, they tried to make this about peace and love. When they went around with the camera, first of all, they had pay-per-view, right? So they crushed pay-per-view. But on pay-per-view, they didn't even show the bands. They literally showed the anarchy, the shenanigans, things that you would never want your kids to see would be remained for pornographic sites, right? And so instead of being this peace and love environment, if you watch the crowd side by side where people are sitting down holding their kids, you can when they interview people, who is the number one band you want to see? Everybody. Corn, Fred Durst, you know, Red Hot Chili Peppers. When you look at the music, there's a point in which they burn everything down when the crowd is out of control on day 2. Out of control. And they ask Fred Durst to go back out there and try to calm him down. And he sings Jimi Hendrix the word fire. And people become animalistic, bro, and start burning things down. And that's the power of a crowd. And people were even saying later on, because they were there in attendance, and it's almost, 15 years later, they said it was unbelievable. People would do things they would never do because of this huge crowd of people, like breaking into the vendor tents and stealing stuff. Everybody looted. One person would have never walked into a tent and sold something, but because everybody was doing it. And it all came down to one thing. It came down to profit. When they switched to profit, they cut down on the porta potties. They sold the rights to all the food rights and the food rights. So originally at the first Woodstock, there was donation of food, people coming up salad. Someone organized all the food. At this event, it was $4 for a bottle of water on day 1. It was $12 a bottle of water on day 3, right? Oh, and so instead of being, remember, this guy is the guy who put it all on. I forget his name. I looked him up last night. He looked up his net worth. Just because he was a super interesting guy. But his philosophy and the purpose was incongruent. And so what happened was at the very end on day 3, every day they go to the media tent and they articulate to the media how day 1 went, how day 2 went. So on day 3, they're raising their flag as we crushed it. We only have 3 more hours, 2 more acts, and we're done. This is when we did it all for the nookie. Come on. And so they're kind of counting their chickens before they hatch. And obviously the bands go on stage and, people are starting to leave, but the thing was that there was no one in care. And so people started throwing bottles because MTV was an ambassador for this community music, right? And because there was no water on day 1, it was like people loved MTV and all of the anchors. And they said they started turning on them like they were the people putting on the event. And so you have these people who are on day 1 looked at putting on this great thing. And then, basically they wanted to end it with gun violence. That was the purpose, right? So they wanted it because all of the gun violence but they didn't get that. They didn't get that communicated day 1 and day 2. So the guy who has a purpose, who's trying to have this with last 3 hours end on this high note, decides to give out 100,000 candles. Up to this point, they were stopping everything at the gate. So they want to get this candle, this lit candle, to 100,000 people who have been on a 3-day binge, right? And bring out Red Hot Chili Peppers who are butt naked on stage, right? And dude, it just becomes, and if you look at it, at the end, the reason they burnt it down is they felt like what they had subscribed to, this peace and love. First of all, the founders didn't know anything about the acts. right? So it wasn't like, so right then they weren't doing it for their purpose, right? They weren't doing it because of something they believed in. When Jewel came out, the singer Jewel, the crowd calmed, right? And they noticed like it was like an organism, right? But like Korn said, you could see when he would sing a lyric, you could see the sound wave as the back of the audience would hear the words, and you would see the hands go up and down to the language, of the song, as the people in the front would hear it first and get excited, and it would go through the back, and it was like this crowd would move 6 feet at a time. And the point that I'm making is that they were trying to recreate something that was super special, and do it all for profit. And so there wasn't really, the community wasn't the purpose. The community didn't have a shared purpose. In fact, when Jules went up, they asked him to show her tits, and everyone kept on talking about like, this is seems like a bunch of frat boys who are hungover, and it was gross, right?
Right.
There was no respect for people or things versus when you look at them side by side. And I think that that's important, because when your purpose is profit, right? That was my takeaway. Versus often they're a true authentic thing that is inside of you that other people share, that you're carrying the torch and other people want to become a part of, versus, building community in a non-authentic way.
Sure. So when you think about that, we all have businesses, and, we're all trying to build businesses. Profit is what drives the mission. We're all capitalists. We believe in a capitalist system. We believe in, I believe that, profit is good. I believe that that's what enables me to be able to, help fulfill my purpose. And I agree with what you're saying, but I'm curious as to what you think, how you go about building a community when you're especially in your business that's related to your business, without letting profit become, intermingled with the purpose. How do you keep that?
I think you have to have a life by strategy. I think when, in Digital President, life by strategy is about going from where you are to where you want to be. I mean, if your business is exactly where you want to be, you're doing the things that you love, then you just need to ask the question, why do you do what you do? They should be inside of you. I think 99.9% of people, they're not. And so I think the question is, if you don't do the deep work and get to that purpose, I could give you examples, stuff I wouldn't even say on the podcast in my own mind that I reflected on. There's a better show on than the Woodstock. It's a 3-part series. The third show is a show that is unbelievable, and it's called The Most Hated Guy on the Internet. I don't know.
I've heard that floating around, people talking about that. Yeah, I haven't watched it.
It's an unreal story. The guy was but the point of that is he built a real community, and it was around something bad. And and he had a purpose, and he was the epitome of polarizing. And he climbed at a young age the ladder of influence, period. Built something really unique. But around a purpose. The purpose was really around hate. It was around if your girlfriend or boyfriend cheated on you, but they had sent you like a pic. It was called basically you would upload it to this site. So then they would start to link it to their profile. So like if your ex-girlfriend sent you a bunch of nasty pics, but then cheated on you, you would upload dirty pictures of her to the site. So it was,
oh wow,
and the site took off, and it built a huge community. And anyway, but I do believe I think that there's success principles the number one takeaway was he was polarizing. And so, he stood for something and he didn't shy off of his square. He that's whether it was good, bad, or whatever, he beat his drum, and here's the word, he was extremely consistent. They even called him the first internet troll. Young guy. I mean, he built a huge company, and he just posted the wrong picture of the wrong girl and her mom. It took her 4 years, but got him in jail. And
wow.
And she was pretty relentless. But she had written a book, and the book she had written was about how to get into any celebrity party, like when she was like 25 or 28, and she was on Oprah, and literally she's with like it shows a highlight reel that makes Joe Polish look like he's never met someone. If you've seen Joe Polish's highlight reel, I mean, it's pretty amazing. And she wrote a book about it, and she just talked about how there was always a way, and that was her mindset. And so she's married to this attorney in California. And someone texted her daughter one day while she was working at her, a waitress at a coffee house, that her picture was on this site. And anyway, the point that I think that in life you can learn it, you don't have to look at the message, but look at the principles. And one of the things that they said, at the end of the 3-series show, one of the girls said how the community died. When he got sentenced to 30 months in jail, and she just talked about how my biggest takeaway was the last 5 minutes. She was just like, people were talking about how they just used to wake up every morning, really waiting for his post, what story he was going to tell them that day. And, he was kind of always keeping them hanging on to the neck. He was the entertainment of their life through social media. Anyway, I think it's important for people to understand that whether it's used for good or bad, it's still that powerful, because what we're really saying is how you control masses of people. How you, and when I say control, I'm talking about, control their attention, right? If Gary Vee says we're in the business of day trading people's attention, if your desire is to become a person of influence, then back to your original question, how do you do it is, you start with, getting to the core of something that, you're extremely passionate about, right? Because at the core, in order for you to be truly authentically consistent long-term, it can't feel like work, it has to be authentically something that, is driven. In order to build a community that you're going to be a part of and contribute to, that's going to grow bigger than you have to get to the core belief. And so what I told Al was I asked him, what are the 3 words that, if you had to give me what this community stands for, what are those 3 words? And it just so happens that I said that before I watched this show last night, the second show. I told, and on the thing, it said, his name was Hunter Moore. Said Hunter Moore stood for 3 things, and it showed in the headlines the 3 words he stood for. And so I think it comes down to, when it's like when I do this podcast, my biggest takeaway about this episode, this was my biggest takeaway. I went to go take a shower, worked out this morning, and I said, you know what? I'm not going to do this podcast for somebody who doesn't know who I am anymore. Right? Like when you do a podcast for somebody who doesn't know who you are, you're trying to sell yourself to them, right? Versus I didn't know who either of these individuals were, but I was still attracted to them. I was brought in with the headline, and I got to know them through their content. And I realized just in talking to you that the people who are clients that we've already helped, they want to hear us just talk about what it is that we're talking about. Maybe what we did this, what's going on, because they feel like they're already a part of our community. They already share our beliefs. They already know what we stand for. And, staying connected to them is through the podcast versus creating the podcast that affects the psychology, it affects the way that you talk, right? Like, versus being conversational and it's like they're sitting down for coffee with us this morning because they're like, hey, I haven't talked to Mike and Woods in a while. I wonder what they're up to. I wonder what they're talking about, right? Versus, talking at them and teaching them, which would be, I think would be maybe in a YouTube video, right? Like you would teach somebody. But I think when I watch Joe Rogan and trying to dissect, he goes right into his podcast. It's like, what's up, da, da, da. And he just starts talking, right? Note boy, same thing. Hey, what's up, Elon? Blah, blah, blah. And I think it's like, you join that community and I think it's just, it's by being truly authentic to saying, I don't care if you want to listen to what we're talking about. Don't listen. Go to the next one. But if you're a part of our community, then this will be a little bit of entertainment. You know who we are. You either admire us, what we stand for, what we're experts in, what we've done. Maybe we've helped you. Maybe we haven't. Maybe you just believe that we can in the future. But for some reason, we got your attention. And, you might watch this episode out of more entertainment and then go to Netflix instead of skipping through the most hated man on the internet. You're going to see it and be like, oh, that's what Mike and Woods were talking about on the podcast the other day. Just like I do when I'm like, oh, Joe Rogan was talking about, these athletic greens. I'm going to try them. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think, the coolest thing about this is that I always learn in these conversations. I mean, whenever we have conversations, we're always just trying to decode the game, man, decode life. One of the biggest things that I took away from what you were talking about earlier and was you have to, when you start with a life by strategy, like that is really defining your purpose in life. And then what you said to me that really resonated was then it's about that relentless consistency, right? And being able to continually, communicate with that purpose.
But you consistently live. You consistently live. It's when you're trying to manufacture content for somebody that's not already a part of your community, when you create the constraint in creating the content.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I know that I've felt like that sometimes because, obviously, we believe in building a funnel. We believe in building communities. We believe in, the attracting, not chasing.
No. We believe in life by strategy. We believe life by strategy. And that's the point. The point is that's what we believe. That's what we represent. And that is the point, because I don't believe in making a funnel just to sell something that a customer doesn't appreciate or want so I can make money. Life by strategy, by definition, in chapter 1 of the book, is knowing that you can deliver the promise to the customer, right? Knowing if you didn't even get paid until after the promise was delivered. I don't represent selling anything to anybody that I cannot deliver, right? I don't believe in just the funnel, but I believe that if you can design your life, right? So I went and played golf. I shot a video. A buddy of mine, I didn't tell you this on the podcast, but I told somebody this. So I'm going to share it now. But Kobe, the best man at my wedding, was here last week. And, he owns a digital agency. He's worked at a church as a pastor, super good dude. I'm like, hey, I told him I'd be working till 10:30 shooting videos in the morning. I said, today we're going to go to the driving range. Would you like to come? So we went. I did tell you this. And we just had a conversation. And when we got back, he said, man, I kind of see what you do now. He said, but that didn't even feel like work. That didn't even feel like work, and yeah. That's the same thing is like for today, my entire week is planned. The kid I grew up with as a kid, one of my best friends, Luke Woosley, he's in a picture actually. When I was a kid, I grew up with Dr. Woosley. I lived with them. I moved in with them when I was in high school, right? And he gets here today, right? And I'm going to shoot tons of content. But I guarantee you one thing, we're going to have fun doing it. And, we'll capture some good stuff, and some of it will be interesting. Some of it will never get published. But living a life by strategy, I think, is designing a life in a rear, right? Like, where am I? It's believing that you can live with intention. It's believing, it's so many people out there, they cannot dream. And I know this to be true. A lot of people, dude, have it bad. And the level of bad is different. Some people are just thinking about how they're going to pay that credit card statement. Some people are thinking about, man, when I get home tonight, I'm just not going to try to fight with my wife. Some people are thinking, I wonder why my daughter and son didn't come home last night. I mean, they're being rebellion, like their kid, like people are living, and then they're trying to manage making money. And as entrepreneurs, that means they're trying to balance all of that stuff and then trying to produce some transaction that makes income. And so it's the balance of that transactional income that they have to invest time in. Life by Strategy was our awareness as entrepreneurs selling over $50 million in products and services and looking and dissecting it with intention, because we were starting from scratch. Out of all the things we've done, how would we design, if we could go back from scratch and design the perfect business? And we determined that there was a different value exchange. There was a different level of effort. There was a strategy in products and services, designed offers, and that some of those things took different investments of time and people that needed to be managed. And we believed that we didn't want to just make money, but that we wanted to design a strategy that would allow us, with the assumption that if success was guaranteed, that if we were successful, what would our perfect day look like? And if our and before the perfect day was even feasible, that meant we would start the beginning of the month with all of our bills paid. And so we allowed ourselves to dream. And it was in the very act of dreaming that we created that, by taking the time to believe that anything was possible. And through that, we believe that you should live a life by strategy. Now you told me a year ago when I was closing on a house, you were like, dude, you should write the book, because you really live in your life by strategy. I mean, you really, like, you done kicked the field goal, dunked on the goal, And I'm telling you, to be honest with you, I shun away my life from the internet, because I don't want, because that's what I struggle with. I don't want, because it is so good. I've been so blessed. I try to stay in the trenches,
Yeah. I see that.
But when I see other people, my purpose, when I see my other people, like my boy Sammy over here holding the camera, and we're sitting around, and today me and Sammy are sitting around. He's never turned on a computer, ever turned on a computer. He got his first computer. We went to Best Buy, right, and bought a computer. He got the same computer as I got, and he set up his Google. It was weird, because I told him, I was teaching him how to create folders, and I was explaining to him folder structure. And if I gave him a scenario, if I wanted to find a picture of my family, I would go to pics. I would go to all the way down. I was teaching him folder structure. And when I told him, so in the notes, put under the folder, put folder note, under folder, put notes. And he wrote folder notes. I said, well, it's going to already say folder, put. And I realized the blessing in teaching him was really a blessing in simplicity, to know and be reminded in simple things. When somebody doesn't understand, you have to be in their shoes to be a great teacher, right? And right. So I was learning and being reminded of things that go take someone who's never turned on a computer and explain it to them. And it's a great exercise in teaching that can be applied to more complicated topics, right? Because you understand, okay, they don't know what you mean exactly. You got to give them the step by step. And so, but my fulfillment comes from seeing, my fulfillment comes from seeing somebody like him. Someone like him who sends me, I'm going to put it up here. Literally, he texted me a whiteboard of all of his goals. And I'm going to have him say something, if y'all can hear him. What's the first words you spoke to me today that you said you did last night that I said, man, that's scary?
I started writing a book.
You hear what he said?
Started writing a book.
He started writing a book. I didn't tell him to write a book. I mean, even though I started thinking, and for people, if they knew his story and if they knew, I didn't tell him any of this. He just walked in my house and said, Michael, because he's got a computer now. He said, Michael, last night I started writing a book. Well, Digital President is why every single person should write a book, right? And I started thinking about, you know, I was curious. I literally wanted to help him with this book because what's my perfect day? My perfect day is helping somebody who has a reason, a passion to do something. Like I literally had to turn it off because I was thinking of all the different titles and subtitles that would be best for him, right? I asked him, what is the title? And he said, I don't know. And I was like, man, and it was on my, and I'll think about it tonight in bed. I'll think about it when I work out. Why? Because that's what I'm passionate about. And so it will never feel like I'm working. It will always, but I'll be creating value. And that's what we stand for, you know? And the truth is, my takeaway is we got to say it more. We got to say it clear. We got to say it more often. And even if I'm only talking to one person, that's all that matters, right? Because when I'm talking to one person, 10 people behind them will be listening. In those 10 people, out of those 10 people, 5 will be unconsciously looking to become a part of something.
Right. Yeah. I think most people are. But I you know, as you're talking, like I'm literally seeing the sign behind your head, Life by Strategy, the symbols, the symbol, like, dude, symbolism is powerful. Like one of the first things that we did, think about how much time we spent trying to codify what Life by Strategy is, trying to codify this philosophy and then trying to put symbols around it. You know, the lawn chair, the ski lift, you know, and then
bro, if we wouldn't have codified it, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah. Yeah. Because what happens in that process is you make it a reality. I've been, as I've been coaching some people through this process, because they have a passion and they're just like, it's almost like they're just discovering it and getting permission to pursue it and make it real. And I told them, I took a photograph of, I was encouraging a gal, I call her the mega military agent. I was encouraging her to go ahead and get all of her merch printed out, to get her t-shirts made, to get this movement started, because she's obviously passionate about it, dude. She's going to help so many people just follow the path that she followed because she decoded it and she figured it out. But I took a picture. I literally had 4 shirts. I had a Life by Strategy shirt. I had 3 digital president t-shirts, all folded up, like lined up on my bed. And I took the picture and sent it to her. And I was like, you got to make it reality. Once you start making it reality and you put those things out there, that helps attract people. Those symbols, they mean something. And even if it's just for you, you know, like it was some of this stuff was just for us to solidify this, you know, what this movement means, what this purpose means. And there's power in that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I think that people are, what you should do, I think you should start. I really believe, you know, the community funnel, you can't build community without your Life by Strategy. Or you might, you know, it's the whole saying, you might end up at the top of the ladder learning it's against the wrong wall. And I think people, you know, the biggest problem and challenge that people are going to have, and this isn't here, this is in life, right? Like this is in life, people are going to struggle with 2 things, right? It's going to be psychology or skills, right? Period. They're going to struggle with psychology or skills. And you know, when you really when you really think about it, like for instance, think about it like this, okay? Let's say that you went in and played a video game, and you were playing a video game against a 10-year-old, right? Is the 10-year-old smarter than you?
No,
But do you think they might beat you?
probably.
And the reason they will beat you, and this has to go back to a video I'm posting on my YouTube. This was something I was working on this morning. Is because they've gathered skills. See, when you play Mario Brothers the first time, you start to learn one thing. It's called anticipation. And anticipation is one of the number one skills you can have. Because when you die, you anticipate that turtle falling and needing to jump right before it, right? And so when you play a video game with a child, it's not that they're better than you. They can anticipate better than you. So the psychology, through repetition, they don't believe that they can't get to the next level. They know exactly what thing's stopping them from winning that level. It's like, man, every time I jump, the guy at the end, I can't get to the flag. He hits me. I'm jumping too early. Let me try it again. Play the whole thing again to try to jump a little bit later, right? And it's the same with getting listings. You know, one of the things that I was a video that I'm working on shooting tomorrow is about buyer agents wanting to become listing agents, right? And again, going back to that metaphor, it's the same thing, and it's psychology. It's psychology or skills, right? Those are any business owner, whether it's building a community, whether it's doing content marketing, whether it's learning direct response, whether it's really having a job and thinking they have a business, whether it's struggling, they're going to have a problem with either they don't have a skill set or they have a mindset problem. Mindset being a way they're thinking about it. And, when you really can classify what's holding you back to one of those two things and you can address them, whether it's building your real estate business and saying, okay, how can I, maybe someone's watching this and they're saying, how you can't build community in real estate. BS you can. I know a guy that sold 77 homes in one neighborhood. I know a guy right now that owns the neighborhood Facebook group. And I know a guy that became one of the top agents in one of the fastest growing cities in the country by owning the kind of the go-to place for the entire community to go, who ended up becoming literally the mayor of the city, which is the mayor of Frisco. He used to own Frisco Online. Now he's the mayor of Frisco, which happens to, be in the same office as Jerry Jones, because that's where the Cowboys headquarters are, right? But I would know when I moved out of my office, he moved in. He was just a realtor. Now he's the mayor, and he built community, and he started by building real community online, and now he's over the entire community, literally. He's the mayor, and so it's really taking this time to think like, well, with Life by Strategy and our philosophy and the community that we represent people that that believe that it's possible to live the life that they desire through acquiring better skills or a better mindset, right? By having a better strategy, right? And that's really at the fundamental principle. If you don't think it can be a better, hey, God bless you. I recommend you going to a Tony Robbins conference, because you got but if you think things can get better and you have a drive in your belly and you're willing to work for it, I don't like the people who have the dream but no drive, right? Right, where they have incongruency, right, where their actions aren't congruent. But when you have somebody that's willing to do whatever it takes and they believe anything's possible, shoot, working with that person never feels like a day of work, because they're gonna do the work, and you know that it's possible.
Right. They just need the strategy.
Yeah, and anything's possible, so you can help them with the strategy.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right, man. It really does come down to that, because either they don't believe you, or they don't believe that they can do it. They have some limiting belief, right? But as long as they're willing to do the work and they have the right strategy, man, anybody can do anything. I know that's what that's what we believe, and it never ceases to amaze me.
Yeah, and
But it's not
I
easy.
think if this has got your attention, you should go check out the book, Digital President. There's a link in the description. I promise you, we put our heart and soul into it. We start with the fundamental principles. I think the book is the textbook for attracting clients online and building a community. I think it definitely will get you thinking. If this episode resonated with you, then you will absolutely love the book. So make sure you go check it out. There'll be a link in the description. Woods, I appreciate your time today, brother. I appreciate you jumping on. I know we're going to be dropping a few more episodes this week. Guys, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. If you like this episode or you have any comments, we would appreciate any comments if you're on YouTube, or any comments if you're listening to this on iTunes. That just helps us, keeps us excited about producing this content and sharing with you guys. So any final words, Woods?
No, man, I'm just going to get back to it. Going to keep living the best life, because that best life to live
Is a life by strategy.